everyone, welcome back to a video. Today I wanted to talk about some hidden threats that actually could be affecting the success of your food forest and the health of your plants. And usually these things go unnoticed, and in today's video I'm just going to highlight them and also give solutions to each one. So the first hidden threat that I want to talk about is water, and more specifically the quality of water. So most people, or most growers, or at least people who are new to growing, will water their plants with tap water, and unbeknown to them, tap water nowadays contains a whole host of chemicals, or at least traces of chemicals, that could severely impact the growth and health of your plants. I mean, the stuff showing where they've tested water, it contains a whole host of heavy metals, chemicals like chlorine, fluoride, and even traces of prescription medication. And I don't know how that's managed to end up in the water supply, but you definitely don't want to put that on your plants. And again, this is actually being tested on plants, the actual growth of plants. There's stuff showing plants watered with tap water versus harvested rainwater, which is the main solution, which I'll talk about in a moment, does actually change the health of the plant and also like the growth of the plant. So if you want to have a successful food forest and you're not paying attention to the water you put in your plants, and you're obviously shooting yourself in the foot a little bit. And especially when I talk a lot about this on the channel, about the health of the soil. You're taking care and trying to promote healthy soil, healthy microorganisms in the soil, and then you're going to, at the same time, you're watering it with tap water, then you're not exactly aiding the soil health. You're actually negatively impacting it, and that will, like I said, it will not only affect the growth of your plants, it will affect the soil health and the microorganisms within the soil. So what's the solution? Because, I mean, what's the solution to this? Well, the main thing, really, the easiest solution is to eliminate watering as much as possible. So then you don't even have to worry about getting alternatives. And I talk about this a lot on my channel again, how I very, very rarely water at all. I know in the UK there's more rain than other parts of the world, but with a system where you have a covering on the ground and that retains moisture like wood chips, or even simple covering like grass, straw, hay, it does really stop you from needing to water so much. And that obviously takes away the problem with watering with tap water, because you don't actually have to water. But if it does come to watering, which I do water on the occasions where I want to get seeds up, like I want to germinate the seeds and we're going for a bit of a dry spell and it's not raining, or there's going a bit of a drought and I want to water the seeds again, water the young seedlings, then the best option we've got is rainwater. And there's very, very simple systems you can put in place to harvest rainwater. I've got probably the most simple system of them all, which has worked really well for me, and it's basically all I've got is some old bins, obviously cleaned out, because you want to make sure you don't have plastic leaching into the bins, into the water supply, with a water butt on the gutter of the pipe. So basically when it rains on the roof of the house, it runs down the gutter, and then this little water butt still allows water to flow through, but it catches a lot of the overflow and basically fills up the bins to the side of the gutter. So I end up getting full bins when it rains basically as a supply to fall back on. And obviously this is better quality water because it's not contaminated with any chemicals, so no, it's just falling from the sky. I mean, there's an argument where it could be contaminated because a lot of rainwater nowadays contains even traces of stuff like glyphosate, which is pretty worrying, but that's for a whole nother video. But in itself, harvesting your own water is so good, because not only is it supposedly better, it's free, and it makes you not reliant on anyone else for your water supply, which means you're more self-sufficient. So pair harvesting rainwater with having a system that doesn't require much water in the first place, like using a covering. That sort of eliminates that problem. But it's just something to be aware of, because water can definitely be a hidden threat if you're not aware of the potential problems within the current water supply. The next threat I wanted to talk about was what is happening in the skies right now. I mean, I don't know if you've been observing like me, and if you have, I'd actually like to know in the comments what your views are on this. Quite recently, in fact last year or so, I've noticed the sky is getting very cluttered, in fact littered with plain trails that not only stay in trails, which look like litter in my opinion, they end up spreading across the entire sky, creating a white haze, and it's even described as a hazy sunshine on the weather forecast. And this is, to be honest, completely unacceptable. I don't know what's going on, I don't know if it's intentional or unintentional. I mean, I know there's a lot of conspiracies around chemtrails and contrails, and around SRM technology, solar radiation management, and how planes are spraying aerosol into the stratosphere to reflect sunlight to combat climate change. But all that aside, just from a growing standpoint, we really have to be concerned about, you know, what is happening to our skies, because this does affect the growth of your plants. Like, it's lesson 1 in science at school. I know school didn't teach you much, or didn't teach me much anyway, but in science at school you learn about photosynthesis and how the plants need sunlight on the leaves to get energy to grow. And if obviously this is getting blocked, then the plants aren't going to grow as well. So that's not a good one. And also there's stuff showing how this white haze across the sky is also locking in a bit of humidity into the atmosphere. And again, I don't even notice that yourself. If you have, let me know in the comments if you notice any difference in the actual atmosphere. Then that has actually been shown to increase the pest population, like pest problems, because it obviously get more humid, damp conditions. It's a breeding ground for pests and funguses and stuff. But yeah, what are the solutions to this? Because obviously that's quite a negative one. It seems quite a bit of an issue, the sky's getting covered. What are the solutions? Well, I've seen a lot of stuff online talking about electroculture. I've never actually tried it, so I don't know how true it actually is, but basically that's where you get a copper wire, create like a spiral antenna, and stick it in the ground around your garden perimeter, and then it clears the skies of the Earth's energies. But I don't really believe that. Again, if you've tried it and you found it works, let me know in the comments, because I definitely will give that a go. But at the moment I've just got too much stuff going on. I'm not interested in trying that. The most obvious solution, even though it's not practical for everyone, is to just relocate. It's more applicable to people who are looking to move to a new off-grid homestead. It's something you should really pay attention to before you invest in land. You want to make sure you're not buying in a place that's got a lot of contrails, and it's very easy to avoid really, because you just choose a place that doesn't have an airport nearby. Like if you're going next to a city that has a busy airport, you're going to get more planes flying along the channel down the lines, and it's going to be consistently clouding up the skies. Whereas if you go to a place where there's no airport, you're not going to have that same issue. So aside from electroculture, really moving is one of the only options. But I really wanted to just raise this point because I wanted to actually put it out there and see if you've noticed anything, you know, from wherever you are growing in the world, so we can come to a bit of a consensus on what's actually going on. The next hidden threat I wanted to cover is actually something that's quite common among growers, and it's something I'm very careful to avoid because of the negative impact it can actually have. And I'm talking about avoiding materials, whether it's composite materials, covering materials, or any other kind of materials you want to put in your garden. Avoid them having any kind of weed killer or glyphosate sprayed on them in their lifetime. So basically what I'm talking about is, if you're buying, say, straw, hay as a covering, make sure that it's never been sprayed with any glyphosate or weed killer, because that will just end up in your garden and really impact the growth of your plants. I mean, I've seen stuff in the past of other growers where they've experienced issues that are pretty horrific actually, just because they made one mistake in the past of using a material that had weed killer on it. So the specific example I'm referring to I saw recently was somebody who was feeding his livestock with a hay that had weed killer sprayed on it. He then went and got the weed killer, not the weed killer, he then went and got the manure from his livestock and put it on his garden thinking he was fertilising his garden, and that actually completely destroyed his land. Basically for years he was unable to grow even beans or potatoes in that patch for four plus years because the weed killer, just the residue is in the soil, it was stopping all the stuff from growing, which is absolutely shocking. And it's an easy mistake to make if you're not careful. You know, they won't highlight it, they won't advertise when they're selling your straw, this has got glyphosate on it, it just won't say organic. You'll have to question, you might even have to question the people you're buying the stuff from. For example, if you're looking to buy manure for your land, for your property, I mean, I don't use any of that stuff in our garden, but if you are, and you go to a farmer and say, can I have some manure, then they'll give you some, and they won't tell you that they've been feeding their animals grass that's had weed killer sprayed on it, and as a result you're going to end up with residues of weed killer on your growing space, which is going to really impact the growth of your plants. So that's a really common one actually I've seen people fall into the trap of, and something you're going to be really careful with. Even when you're creating a composting system, you want to make sure to avoid any non-organic materials in your compost pile, because eventually that will end up on your beds, and again the pesticides or the herbicides sprayed on that on them food scraps in your compost pile will end up going to your beds and really affecting the growth of your plants. So that's the solution to that one really, is just to basically be aware and not fall into the same mistake as some people who have done in the past, because you'll pay the price. The last hidden threat I want to talk about is RF radiation and just any kind of EMFs, because this actually definitely does affect the growth and health of your plants within the surrounding area of high radiation zones. And usually the source of this is cell towers, any kind of radio masts, smart meters, or anything just emits radiation. But I mean, even just common devices like iPhones and all that kind of stuff, but that's a separate story. We're talking more about broader impact on your whole growing space. And if you're ever unsure or you want to measure it, you can easily do it. You can easily measure the RF radiation levels in your area with an RF meter. And I actually have one of these, and I've tested around our area, and luckily very low. But this is why it was brought to my attention. I wanted to cover it in this video because we've been combating it a lot recently. Because not too long ago we had an application put in for a monopole about 100 meters that way. And if you know anything about monopoles, it's just a nickname, or what you call it, a sneaky word for a 5G mast. And 5G is possibly the strongest form of RF radiation there is, and it would certainly affect the growth of our plants and the health of the ecosystem around it. So we did actually combat that, and we've successfully won the case, which is a major win, a very big relief actually. And we did that through coming together as a community and fighting against the application in very strategic ways, which I can tell you briefly about now. Because if you ever have an application put up for a 5G mast near you, hopefully it'll help you, win against the case like it did with us. So briefly, we just we got together as a community, signed a petition that we didn't need or want the 5G mast, and all of our objections. The goal is to get as many objections as we can against the planning permission, and we basically got a lot of objections, and we knew what to say and what not to say, because the rules around objecting are pretty ridiculous. You're not allowed to object on health as much as it is all about health. You can't even object on it, which is very suspicious, isn't it? You have to object on sighting and appearance, which luckily for us, as you can see, because I'm surrounded by some quite nice scenery, it would have looked like an eyesore, and we definitely won on them grounds, plus all the other grounds we mentioned alongside it. But maybe if you're in a city where another mast going up wouldn't actually affect the appearance, I don't know how successful that would be, just objecting on that. So yeah, coming together as a community, objecting as a community, being aware of the situation in the first place, because we weren't even notified. We only found out about this because we went and saw people testing, and we spoke to them firsthand. Spoke to them in person and actually found out what was going on, which they're meant to notify you, but again they don't want to notify because they know people object. But back to it, because obviously not everyone can object to a mast, or you might already have mast up near you. If you go and test your place, like most cities nowadays, the radiation is very high, and it's quite concerning when you're looking at this RF meter, which basically takes the invisible radiation around you and puts it onto a measurable device so you can actually see the effects. And when you see it on full red, yeah, it's quite concerning. And like, also it's very interesting to see, you know, common devices that people use every day, like AirPods, iPhones, how high the radiation is of just them devices. You know, I mean, I don't use that stuff because I think it's not a good thing to get into, and also the health implications of that. But yeah, we really have to start thinking about what we're doing moving forwards. And again, there are other options. You can easily reduce the amount of radiation in your local area. Let's say if you've got a smart meter in your home, instantly you can change that. You can connect all your Wi-Fi routers via Ethernet instead, and which is faster internet, by the way. And yeah, solve it that way. But yeah, it's more this one's more for, the reason I included this is for people who are looking to potentially start a new off-grid property or looking to invest in some land to grow food on. It's something you should have on your checklist to check before you go and invest the money, because you don't want to invest money into a new piece of land and then find out that it's a really bad location for RF radiation. You want to make sure you've covered that on your checklist before you pay. So especially if you're looking to start an off-grid home. So that's why I definitely wanted to include it in this video. So I hope you found this video somewhat useful, and hopefully it can help you steer clear of a few hidden threats when it comes to the health and success of your food forest. You know, because if you haven't got any systems set up to collect water yet, harvest water, or you've accidentally used some kind of covering on your garden that might contain weed killer, then you can quickly address that, because you definitely want to avoid them kind of things in your garden, because it might set it back a long way. And yeah, if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe, that really helps me out, helps my channel grow and spread the message to more and more people. And as always, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.